Alright, shall we begin? Good morning everyone, hello. So for those that haven't been here, a quick recap on what we've done so far. So, firstly, please be respectful, be honest, be mindful of other people's feelings. If there's anything that you hear that upsets you, feel free to leave the room. I don't think anything should because we're not on slavery yet, so let's see what happens. So far, we've gone as far back as 40 million years ago to pre-human times and Kenya Pithecus, all the way to 350,000 years ago to the emergence of Homo sapiens. We looked at Africa and the developments from it being after the Ice Age, which took place 2.5 million years ago, to when it ended 11,700 years ago, and how Africa was as a lush place with nice land, and people were still existing there, starting to develop their societies. And then we looked at how great kings and queens emerged, and the developments in astronomy and astrology and mathematics and science. We touched briefly on the inception of the slave trade and what happened after that. We talked about a bit of civil rights, and moving on to sort of an emancipation, even though it wasn't really from the chains of slavery, where civil rights enabled black people to have certain freedoms, even though it still feels like they're a lack of those freedoms. But great things have happened to black people, and they've become entrepreneurs and at the top level of all different types of industry, and obviously a black president in America was a big sign of that. Then we looked at the lies, his story. What sort of history have we been presented with? Has it been a real history of development of humankind, or has some bits been missing? And then we looked at the white psychological binary that's taking place in the mind, where based on political and social and historical narratives, people have got this idea, this separation in their head between black and white, slave and slave master, colonized and colonizer, intelligent and unintelligent, and that sort of firmly lodged, some people saying, a paranoid schizoid position, theory made by Melanie Klein, but I'll get to that later when we go on to racism. We looked at the power of the words, and how those sort of present negative connotations in any sense when you're speaking about black male, black cat, black ball, black guard, whatever it is. These words wholly present a negative idea about black people. It's sort of, I was looking at something the other day about colour psychology, and I might talk about that at a different point in time. We looked at the distorted lens, a presentation of how we are through the lens of others, through the media, etc., and how we see ourselves as a consequence of that. We looked at social phenomena that have a detrimental effect on us: adultification, brutalization, dehumanization, dealing with microaggressions, racism, infantilization, all the stuff that black people have to deal with on a daily basis. And if you understand what happened during COVID, there was situations in Africa and the Caribbean where black people weren't getting COVID, and people questioned that. What was it? But as Arlene Geronimus, as this white lady's got something called weathering theory, about you getting worn down as a consequence of these sort of sociological phenomena, making you susceptible to illness. So in America and England, per se, black people were getting extremely sick, but because they didn't have to face those social pressures in places like the Caribbean and Africa, they weren't contracting COVID as easy as others. So we looked at the impact of those, dealing with those societal phenomena and impact: black fatigue, black rage, low self-esteem, low self-identity, and other health-related issues. Then we looked at the benefits of learning black history, building your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-identity, and also for others outside of the black culture, how it demystifies stereotypes and gives an understanding of the resilience that black people have demonstrated over the years. So, we examined evidence regarding the birthplace of humans. We also looked at adaptation through natural selection, and 90 to 60,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens, even though Homo erectus came out 2 million years before, how we spread across the globe and adapted to our environments. And it was about 12 to 8,000 years that depigmentation took place with two main genes that contributed to that SLC45A2 and SLC24A5. And really, when you think about it, the emergence of what you may call white people came quite early, really, quite late, quite near to now, should I say. Then we looked at Kush and the emergence of the Tarseti Golden Age in Sudan. And then we moved on, looked at Tarseti, then we went on to Kerma culture, the Napatan culture, the Meroitic culture. And now we're at Egypt. So
hold on. Last week I queried that there's hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone and subsequently checked, and of course there are. You were right. I was wrong.
Good checking, Arnold. Good checking. I love it. All right, so all right. Yeah. Check on, Arnold. I love it. All right, so a couple of questions. What are the historians like Milana Karenga? I don't know why it says ands, that's late night stuff. And Samuel Yaboa said about ancient Africa. Have they said that ancient Kemet was the oldest, grandest and most advanced civilization, which was unequaled by any other ancient civilization? Have they said B, ancient Kemet was an ancient civilization built on the back of slaves? Or have they said C, ancient Kemet were good at building pyramids, but it was still a primitive civilization? Any answers? A, B, or C? My teaching must be really poor now.
You now say,
I don't want that one, never been printed.
Oh, sorry.
You now say, I don't want you to answer that because you've got the crib in your hands.
Right. A. It is A. A, it is. Do all historians agree on the date when Kemet first emerged?
No.
No, they don't. So you got people like Robin Walker. It's strange because he's meticulous, looking at evidence and the history from different theories, sort of like a meta-analysis, gives older dates. So his thoughts about the dating of the emergence of the first dynasty with King Nama was 5,660 BCE, while people like Zainab Badawi and Milana Karenga put it about 3,100 BC. So there are differences in how people are seeing timelines. Many Greek scholars have written about the achievements of Kemet. Identify two scholars that made such claims. Was it A, Plato and Herodotus, B, Zorba and Pantheon, or C, Alexander and Apollo?
A.
Go on! Nice. Right. Who spent 22 years in Kemet learning? Was it Pythagoras, Isocrates, or Socrates?
Pythagoras.
Yes, son. Oh, the Greeks called the whole of Africa by what name? Was it Ethiopia, Axiom, or Ouagadougou?
Ethiopia.
Yes. Meaning what? For a bonus point. What did Ethiopia mean in Greek translation? Yes, land of the blood. Yes, Mr. Roberts. Land of the burnt faces. Circle the names. Kemet was also named. What did they also? All right, you can say them out if you want. What did they also used to call Egypt? Did they used to call it Bilad as Sudan? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Did they used to call it Hausa?
No.
No. Did they used to call it Hukapata?
Yes.
Yeah. Oyo?
No.
Tarmeri?
Yes.
Or Tar, how do you say it in there?
Tamari.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And for bonus, do you know what those ones mean? Bilad as Sudan? Land of the Blacks. Hukapata doesn't mean much. It was a city in Memphis. And Tarmeri, beloved land. Right, briefly describe how cinema depicted ancient Egyptians. You can say it out if you want. How did the old depictions in those Hollywood films, what was the Egyptians looking like?
Europeans.
They were European-like. And also, a lot of them you saw sometimes doing some slave building work on the pyramids, even though that was quite strange because the other day I sort of found out they didn't even talk about building pyramids in the Bible. They talked about building storehouses. That was weird because all this time people have been telling me that the slaves had built pyramids and it says it in the Bible. What was the population of ancient Kemet like? Was it an all-black population? Was it an all-Arab population? Or was it a diverse population?
Diverse.
It was a diverse population. It's quite weird that even genetic research now shows that there was a lot more mixed from back in the day than present day. Now they're seen as more blackness in present day, more nearer to now genetic evidence that black people are more black now than it was back in the day. So that sort of throws up a lot for certain theorists. Right, where were black Kemites? Were there black Kemites in Kemet? What is the evidence to say there were black Kemites in Kemet? Is there any evidence to say there were black people rolling around in Kemet? Not much, but there is DNA data, but it's again, it's a mixture, and plus remember the 25th dynasty was taken over by the Nubians, and there was a lot of interaction between the Kushites and the Kemites. And what was the heart of Kemetic life? What served as the heart of Kemetic life? Was it the Nile River, the pyramids, or the kings and queens?
Was it the Nile?
It was the Nile. That served a real good purpose for their development, whether it was making reed brushes, papyrus, or just their general agriculture. The Nile River is made up of two rivers. What are they? The Red Sea and the Black Sea, the White Nile and the Blue Nile, or the White Nile and the Red Nile?
The white and the blue.
It's the white and the blue. Thank you, Arnold. The Nile River enabled the Kemites to transition from rain-fed subsistence farming to what? Was it A, irrigation, B, a dam approach, or using water cans? A? Yes, irrigation.
I thought you didn't emphasise enough. The point about the lower Nile is there's a huge floodplain, and so every year the ground was replenished with water by a natural flooding.
That's right.
And compared to other of the really ancient cultures, there's less organised irrigation because God did it, or whoever did it for them.
Yeah, because that happened at Upper Egypt, and then it rose up at Upper Egypt and suddenly went down into Lower Egypt, or where it's quite weird because some people still don't understand. It took me a while that Upper Egypt's down here and Lower Egypt is up
It's
there.
a normal way of referring to the parts of a river. It's not that our rivers aren't long
Yeah.
enough for it to be an issue. Anywhere else it is.
Right, what are some of the products that ancient Kemites produced? Was it grapes, chickpeas, bread and beer, kebab, salad, chips and wine, or black-eyed peas, lentils, pasta and orange juice? Alright, trading continued all year long and the Kemites produced more goods. What did the Kemites develop in order to document their supplies? Was it writing hieroglyphics and reed brushes? Was it stone tablets and the abacus? Or the abacus and the calendar? A, yes, it was Jill. Right, last question. What did the Rosetta Stone contribute towards? Was it making bread, making papyrus, or deciphering hieroglyphics?
The deciphering hieroglyphics.
Lovely. And that's the end of that bit. So, I don't know why this is moving about on its own. So last week we ended with the Black Egyptians, and now we'll move on to different parts of Kemetic history. So, we'll look at some periods, because the periods of Kemetic history have been broke up. Even though we won't look at the proto-dynastic stage when they had kings like Scorpion I and Scorpion II, etc. We are going to start from the first dynasty. But ancient Kemetic history has been divided up into 3 distinct periods, which included, does anyone know? Right, the early dynastic period and the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and also the New Kingdom. So, there were 30 dynasties of pharaohs from the beginning of the Old Kingdom, and I'm using the dates from Robin Walker that go further back. So, from 5660 BC until 343 BC when Kemet was conquered by the Persians. So, I'm really upset that I can't give you the whole of Kemetic history because 30 dynasties is a lot. So I've sort of broken it down a little bit and missed out a lot of figures that, all 7 Cleopatras I didn't include. But maybe another time we'll get down with that. So, before the development of the Old Kingdom, there were many Kemetic kings in a period named the Proto-Dynastic period from 3300 BCE. This period marks the formulation of the first Kemetic state. So, some of the kings during this period included Scorpion I, and it's quite strange because sometimes you'll see depictions in films like Imhotep in The Mummy, or the Scorpion King with The Rock, and you won't know the relevance, and even sometimes the sort of manipulation of the story or the character through film. So, Bor, Ka, Scorpion II. So those were some of the kings from the Proto-Dynastic period, and we're not really concerned with that period. We are going to the first dynasty of the Old Kingdom, around 5,000, like I said, I'm using Robin Walker's date, from 5660 BCE to 5598. King Nama, he was the one that he was the founder of the first dynasty. He was from the upper Kemetic city of Thinis. King Nama is also known by the name Mina. There's still some debate about that, but in certain books they'll make reference to that other name. So, what was King Nama famous for? He was famous for unifying Upper and Lower Egypt. And it's written in some sort of way on King Nama's palette. This important historical item indicates King Nama ruling 2 kingdoms. This item shows him wearing 2 crowns, the white crown of Upper Kemet and the red crown. Sorry, I don't know why you can't see that. But here is King Nama's palette. You can go and look it up and find out about it. It doesn't really look like that because it's not coloured in. I just got the coloured in version so you can see it a bit more clearly. So,
Wasn't there was debate whether he was actually from Nubia as well, right?
yeah, that's right. There's all kinds of debate, and sometimes it's like the Olmec heads, or the heads at Easter Island. Look at the facial structure of some of these ancient monuments, and it gives you an idea of what those people look like. So, if that's a depiction of King Nama, does he look like that? I think he looks pretty like that.
Yeah, very much.
So, under King Nama, the state established a light bureaucracy, with artisans and civil servants working for a central government. So imagine this, 5,660 years ago, 60 BC, that they had a certain complexity in regards to the governance of their civilization, fashioning a highly sophisticated traditions of art and learning that thereafter constitute the basic pattern of pharaonic civilization. King Nama established his capital at Memphis. According to the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, King Nama introduced the worship of gods, the practice of sacrifice, and he lived a flossy, really lovely lifestyle, King Nama. It was suggested that King Nama ruled for 62 years. I know Nev knows this, but how did King Nama die? Got done by a hippo. So I don't know what he was doing, but for some reason he was doing something there somewhere and the hippo got him. So, the Old Kingdom was a period in Kemetic history which witnessed the blossoming of Kemetic culture. The other Old Kingdom First Dynasty pharaohs or rulers laid down some notable achievements. So imagine that, there was even a person there that had a treatment for baldness. So, Djer, third pharaoh of the First Dynasty, wrote books on anatomy and medicine. A treatment for baldness was among one of his achievements. So even back then, And well, I don't know if there's a real treatment for baldness now, unless you go to Turkey. But imagine being at 5,660 BCE and someone treating your bald head with something. A great achievement. So, Jajia's tomb was one of the largest and most complex tombs of the first dynasty, and if you see it on a wider scale, it's actually massive. So, Manith, the first pharaoh of the first dynasty, was the first woman in history to run a country in her own right. And a lot of these rulers, foreign rulers, you won't know about. There's so many of them throughout the 30 dynasties, even to remember all their names would be madness. So a lot of people don't even know about, you hear about Cleopatra, Hatshepsut, Ramesses II, Ramesses, who else? Loads of them that you'll hear about, but there's others that you won't even know that made significant contributions to Kemetic history and culture. So, an old kingdom, third dynasty ruler that has received significant attention because of his right-hand man is Pharaoh. And this is either spelled, you'll see it sometimes spelled with a Z. So I think it's Joza, I think it's pronounced Zoza. Yeah, so you'll see it either spelled with a D, J, or a Z, O, S, E, R. So anyone know who his right-hand man was? I mentioned his name earlier. He was in a film, maybe The Mummy. Huh? Yeah, this is alright. It was Imhotep, yeah? Under the rule of Zoza, Imhotep, who according to Maulana Karenga, is the world's first multi-dimensional man, builds the first pyramid, a step pyramid at Saqqara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but if you ever go there and see the tombs that's underground, they've got these coffin-like tombs that are sort of real monolithic, that don't even look like they're made for human size. They look like they're made for giants, but the weight of them, you don't know how they got them underground. So even archaeologists are still wondering what they're for, who they were for, and how they got them under there. So Imhotep was recognized as an architect, a philosopher, a priest, a prime minister, an engineer, a teacher, and the chief physician to Zoza. In later years, Imhotep was venerated as a god, an equal by the Greeks, Asclepios, their own god of, I can't remember.
Medicine.
Of healing, yeah? Their own god of medicine and healing. So, don't look at the cinema depictions of him, because in the Mummy, he's a madman, a mad, evil man. I don't even know why they gave him a depiction of that.
Does that look like a woman?
It does look like, and there's pictures, there's other depictions of him where even when he's standing up, he looks a bit womanly. You never know what was going on back then. Right, the fourth dynasty ruler, Khufu, builds a great pyramid at Giza, which contained 2,300,000 stone blocks weighing about 2.5 tons each. He built the first one, then his son, Khafre, built the second pyramid at Giza, and Manikyur, who is considered to possibly be his son, built the third, smaller pyramid. And there's still debate up to this day. I mean, they've done some experiments with this log rolling and getting the blocks from 15 kilometers away to the point where they built the pyramids. And they said it could be done with sand and these logs and other, they said they could move them. So, who knows? But it's still quite mysterious, especially when they said that these pyramids were aligned with Orion's belt previously. It's out of alignment now, but they said possibly that the mathematical genius of the Egyptians or the Kemites aligned those pyramids with Orion's belt. So, did the slave build the pyramids? No. According to Zainab Badawi, pyramid building was seen as a national endeavour, one that projected the prestige of Egypt and therefore did not require an enslaved workforce. Plus, King Khufu and his sons explicitly the idea, I've done that wrong, that all humans were equal. And if you go into, and I haven't done it, and I wish I'd done it, and I've given some homework, just one question, but I should have gone into the teachings of Mutt And if you know what that's about, really the goddess Mut was the personification of justice, order, balance and truth, but it was their main teaching that not only had them connected to the planet, but had the Egyptians sort of connected to the cosmos. The end of the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, with the kingdom came to the end in the 6th dynasty, with the reign of Pepe II. Pepe II had become king at the age of 6, and he lived to a ripe old age. However, his powers declined and destructive raids were carried out by provincial rulers. I don't know why this is not showing on that TV. It might be, yes.
Because they're showing around.
Yeah. All right, so we're moving on now. So we've gone from the Old Kingdom. Yeah. So remember there was a pre-dynastic stage that I didn't go into. Just identified some kings. We've gone through the Old Kingdom. Now we're going to the Middle Kingdom and some kings and queens. So approximately 69. I had to count them in the book. It was mad. Kings had ruled until the emergence of the Middle Kingdom. Kemet had been split apart in the years after Pepe's reign. However, Mentuhotep from 3560 to 3548 emerged in a similar way to King Nama. Because it had been fractured and fragmented, Kemet, he had to bring it back together, and again, like King Nama, unify the lower and upper regions of Kemet. Mentuhotep II began the temple complex at Karnak Temple. Has anyone been to Karnak Temple? Yes. Hey, I loved it. I know Gillian thought it was hot. At this point in Kemet, Karnak Temple became the most important place of worship. And if you ever go to Egypt and you go to Karnak Temple, I mean, I didn't really expect to be in awe as much as I was when I went to Luxor Temple. We went to Karnak Temple, went to Valley of the Kings, went to Queen Hatshepsut's, we went to Philae Temple in Aswan. But the scale of everything and just the meticulous detail of the hieroglyphics. There was a part in Karnak Temple where they just had like a walkway, but they just had these rams that all looked identical all the way up to looked like Cleopatra's needle, but amazing stuff. So he started up Karnak Temple, a shift in Kemetic rule. After Mentuhotep II rule, Kemetic rulers were focused on holding the kingdom together. A people called the Hyksos from Western Asia invaded and ruled Kemet, establishing the 15th dynasty. And they introduced Kemet to the horse and chariot, and also a different style of weaponry. It was around that time that was around the sort of Bronze Age. So, we've gone from the Middle Kingdom. There wasn't much more going on after the Old Kingdom, so they were just trying to hold it together. Then Mentuhotep, he came and he unified the place again, and now we're moving on to the New Kingdom. Right, the Hyksos ruled for 150 years until the Kemets beat down the Hyksos under the rule of Ahmose I, and thereby establishing the New Kingdom in 1709 to 1683. The 18th dynasty was now under, again, Kemetic rule. And if you understand, I have a look at Kemetic history, there was always, at different points in time, a passing. It's like anything, there's always rise and fall of nations across history. And I'm assuming some people will assume that different nations in the near future, maybe India, maybe China, may rise up in a different way over other worldly superpowers. So it's been a timeline of that happening throughout history anyway. So, from this moment onwards, Kemet became more powerful and prosperous for the next 5 centuries. Kemet built an empire conquering territory in what would now be parts of Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. So, Ahmose the first was far-reaching in regards to his conquering skills. The emergence of high-profile rulers. So there were so many rulers in the New Kingdom that I can put them down in here, otherwise we'd be here for a good couple of weeks looking at each of these rulers, but I just identified a few. The New Kingdom had a number of rulers that have been widely recognised, including Tutankhamun. When I was in Egypt, to remember the name, the tour guide said Queen Hot Chicken Soup. That's the only reason I remembered it, but it's Hatshepsut. But I don't, even when I'm pronouncing them, I don't think I'm saying it right. And Ramesses the Great. So, Tutankhamun, because you can't get a picture of him. Hatshepsut, because you can't get a picture of her. And Ramesses the Great.
Ramesses the Great is most probably the pharaoh in the book of Exodus. But unfortunately, all that stuff about the Jews in slavery in Goshen, there's actually no record of anything to do with them in Egyptian records, and possibly the whole thing was part of a foundation myth, and they were never there.
I know, and it's right strange. The more, I mean, I've never really read the Bible, but the factual bits, the mythology and legend, there's all a sort of different mix of all that in the Bible, and I think that deciphering what's true or not is quite hard work in the minds of some people, because some people take legend and myth as truth. But who am I to criticise? Now, Kemet went through significant changes and engaged in some significant battles. The Kemites were ruled and influenced by a number of non-African rulers until they were conquered by the Arabs. So, and there was the influence of the Assyrians when they conquered in 663 BC. And we looked at the Assyrians as well, at the Libyans and the Assyrians with their battles with the Kushites before as well. The influence of the Persians in 525 BCE. The influence of the Greeks in 332 BCE. Yeah, and the influence of the Romans. Remember the one-eyed warrior woman? I don't know if you remember her name. Amaniras, the Kushite queen that backed up the Romans and then buried Augustus's head, supposedly at one part where they lived, so the rest of the Nubians could walk over that head every day in disrespect. And the influence of the Arabs in 639 AD. And the Arab conquest reshaped the nation's demographics, religion and linguistics, and that's still evident today. It's quite strange that there's this sort of feeling that from the Egyptians that we're not black, even though they're not and they're Arab. When you go up to Uzwi within Luxor, you know, we're calling Nubian, yeah. But there's this distinct difference of not sort of really investing in an idea of having black Egyptians, even though they'll point you down to Aswan and say go down there really. So there were some major achievements from the Kemites, quite a lot of them. So monumental architecture and engineering, these Egyptians done a lot. So the pyramids, they constructed massive stone structures like the Great Pyramids of Giza, which stood as the world's tallest human structure for over 3,800 years. So it took a little while before modern building and architecture surpassed the height of the Great Pyramid. Simple machines, engineers masterfully utilised the ramp and the lever to lift and transport stone blocks weighing multiple tons. I talked about that before, and they were always debating whether it could happen. And they've done the experiments, and actually I watched something more recently where there were some people in Egypt with some big stones using that method, and they could do it by having sand under these pieces of wood and these rolling timber bits. So they were doing a lot. And if you watch, I mean, it's quite strange because if you watch things like, I don't know if any of you have watched Ancient Aliens, because of the marvels of the Kemites, there's been this idea that there were alien intervention that allowed the Egyptians the technology to do some of their buildings and do some of the things that they've done. So I don't know if you believe there was alien intervention. I don't, but maybe if you look up a person like Billy Carson, he might say that. I don't know if Billy Carson talks about aliens in that way, but he does talk about the Anunnaki, if I'm saying that right. Do you know that word, Arnold, the Anunnaki, these alien beings that are supposed to come down here?
I think I closed my mind to it. The point about aliens is in order to get here, they must be able to travel several times the speed of light.
Yes.
Which is supposed to be impossible. But if it's true, it means if they did come, they'd be moving too fast for anyone to see them.
Yeah.
And why they then should bother with pyramids if they actually got that technology. Yeah, this alien invasions is some people are never satisfied with anything.
Do you believe there's life elsewhere in the universe, Arnold?
Yes, but it's too far away to have the slightest, the chances of there not being life in billions of worlds, billions of suns, is mathematically fairly remote. But the possibility of any kind of contact between different civilizations in the universe is actually just too big.
Yeah.
All the stars we see have probably been extinct for millions of years.
Yeah.
It takes that long for light to get here.
Yeah. Right, so there was plumbing, maritime technology. They laid some of the earliest known copper water pipes and built the first plank sail-driven boats. So, a lot going on in regards to architecture and engineering for the Egyptians. So, more achievements, writing and literature. Hieroglyphics, they developed a highly sophisticated pictorial writing system around 3200 BCE to record historical events, religious texts, and trade. Papyrus sheets, by processing the reeds growing along the Nile, they invented the world's first form of paper. Ink and scrolls, they created durable black and coloured inks, allowing scribes to keep meticulous administrative and agricultural records. And I don't know if this is it, but there was also the pyramid text, the oldest text, religious text on the planet, supposedly. And there's always been a throw-up between Egyptian text and Sumerian text. Some people say that Sumerian text is older, and some people will say that the pyramid text is the oldest text, religious text on the planet.
The Sumerian stuff is simply government records business. There isn't any culture in it at all, unlike the Egyptians.
Yeah. Right. What else did they do? Mathematics and astronomy. Advanced math, they developed a decimal number system, worked with fractions and established a practical understanding of geometry to map out fields and build monuments. And like I said earlier, people like Pythagoras, Plato, etc., they went down there, they've done some learning. The history man, the Greek history man, Herodotus always talked about the amazing achievements of the Kenites. 365-day solar calendar. By tracking the star Sirius and the rotation of the sun, astronomers created a 12-month calendar system that directly mirrors our modern year. Timekeeping tools. They invented early sundials and water clocks to track hours and better predict the crucial seasonal flooding of the Nile. What else were they doing? What's it about they were doing there?
Eye surgery.
Yes, and they used to do cataract surgery as well back then. So, medicine and autonomy, surgical mastery. Egyptian doctors documented complex medical knowledge on scrolls like the Edwin Smith papyrus, mastering techniques for stitching wounds and resetting broken bones, and also doing some cataract stuff. Even though there was other papyrus that dealt with magic and stuff like the Westcar papyrus. Anatomical knowledge. Through the religious practice of mummification, they gained an exceptionally deep understanding of human organs and circulatory system. So I'm wondering, what was going on in ancient times? If ancient times were ancient, how did they seem so advanced?
Well, the human race was already at least 80,000 years old by the time the Egyptians come. and before Homo sapiens, the Homo erectus, we don't know because it's so long ago, but Homo erectus might already have had advanced language, for example.
That is right.
And what most people call history is less than 3,000 years old. So compare 3,000 to 100,000. 3,000 is nothing.
Yeah, that's right. So personal hygiene, and I always think about the Moors when I think about personal hygiene, because the Christians went there and to Spain and smashed everything up and said that bathing was a sin. So I always think about the Moors when I think about personal hygiene. So they're credited with inventing the first toothbrushes, toothpaste, breath mints, and using coal eyeliner to protect their eyes from the harsh desert sun. So even the toothpaste, it was called Colgate then. When you look it up, you'll see, I'm only joking. Yeah, it wasn't called Colgate, but they had their own form of toothpaste. So, agriculture and statecraft, basic basin irrigation. They built sophisticated networks of canals, dams, and water filling devices like the Shadouf to systematically water their crops. Ox-drawn plough, this tool revolutionised field preparation, drastically increasing the farming efficiency of staple grains like wheat and barley. First peace treaty. Following the Battle of Kadesh, Egypt negotiated and ratified the world's earliest recorded international peace treaty with the Hittite Empire. So, a lot of notable firsts for this Kemetite civilization. So, a few questions. Let's see if my teaching's any good. I hope someone gets something right. Name the 3 distinct periods we identified in Kemetic history.
Sorry, Old Kingdom, New
Yeah.
Kingdom, Middle Kingdom.
Yes, lovely. Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom. Go on, Arnold. How many dynasties did
Were it
Kemet?
33?
30.
30.
Close.
I've got to invent another 3.
Some people say 31. Who founded the first dynasty of Kemet?
Nama.
Well done. What was his other name?
They said Menace, but I swear it was, there was another name for him as well. I can't remember. Menace. I know it was Menace what he wrote there. But it begins with an M. I can't remember what it's called, but yes, sorry.
Lovely. I need to find that out. What is this king famous for? What was King Arthur?
Unifying the lower and upper region.
Yes. My teaching is good. Maybe you might have known that stuff already. All right. Who was the first woman in the history?
Was it Mernif?
Yeah, Mernif.
Yeah,
To run the country in her own right. Who was the third dynasty ruler? Zosa's right-hand man.
Imhotep. Was it Imhotep?
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah.
And what was he famous for? Being what?
He medicine. He built the first. I can't remember what it was called. So it's lost me. But I know it was, medicine was one.
Yeah. First step pyramid.
That's it. That's it. First step pyramid. He's a man of many talents, basically. Yeah.
They call him a polymath.
Mm.
So, name the kings that built the pyramids at Giza. What were they named?
Khufu. Is it Khmer? I can't remember. I remember Khufu. Khafre. That's it. Khafre. And the other one was it the grandson who's supposed to? I can't remember.
What letter does it start with? Do you know?
Was it K as well?
M.
Oh.
Mankior.
Oh yeah, I don't remember. I remember Khufu and Khufu.
Right. Mentuhotep II was famous for doing what during the Middle Kingdom?
Re-establishing it just like normal.
Yeah, re-establishing and unifying the lower and upper.
Mm-hmm.
Who came from Western Asia and conquered the Kemites during
Hyksos.
Yeah.
Hyksos.
Got all the answers. Never go on there. All right. Who conquered them and established the new kingdom?
Was it Amos?
Amos the first. Who conquered Egypt in 639 AD and reshaped the nation?
The Arabs.
The Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Right. a little discussion time. I don't know if you need to discuss much. How much influence do you think Kemet had on the developments of Europe and Western society? If any at all, did they contribute to anything?